Okay, I am going to show you how to do a twist brim hat that is seamless. You're not sewing it on. You will need some paracord, alright, and I'm using my 5/8 inch gauge small flexi loom set to 48 stitches. I'm using some Lions brand Hometown USA stuff, and I got me 2 skeins to work on, and I'm going to show you how to do a paracord cast on so that when you go to add half your stitches back, it is actually seamless. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. You want to get your yarn, alright, and you can go ahead and anchor it. Alright, so how this works is I put a stitch marker on the opposite side. I'm going to stop before this stitch marker. This is my halfway point. Okay, so what I want to do is take my paracord and put it in there, and I'm going to take it over and under and around. Okay, then I go over and under and around, over, under, and around. What you're doing is you're creating a stitch that you're going to give here, okay? So there's around. Okay, so over, under, and around. Alright. And you're just going to continue this all the way around over to the other side, and what you're doing is you are creating a stitch, okay? Over, under, and you may need to go in and untwist. Okay. Alright, so over and under, over and under, over and under. Okay. And it just keeps a uniformity to it, because I don't know how much length I'll need. Normally I just go ahead and I cut it, so I didn't know how much length I'd need. Alright, so we go over and under and over and under and over. Okay. Over and under. Okay. And what you're doing is you're creating a stitch. This is going to be a stitch in between here, okay? So you're going to be flipping a section, all right? And you're going to see how this is going to work. It is going to be a seamless action. Now, yes, you can do a chain cast on and try to cast it back onto the pegs, but I find that just doesn't work as smoothly as you might would want. It just doesn't. Okay. Alright. Over, under, over, 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 under, over. Now, if you ever get an idea of how much paracord you think you might use at one point or another, you can kind of cut it out. I'm going to do this in such a way where it would have been the whole thing. And so I'm going to cut that. Alright. So when you do it like that, then you can kind of make it a little easier. Okay. At this point, I have finished my cast on half of the loom. Okay. So at this point, what you're wanting to do is you can either do a double wrap cast on, you can do a chain cast on. It's up to you. A lot of times I like to do a chain cast on. So what I'm going to do is create a loop here and grab and pull. So I'm going to do a chain cast on, because what's going to happen is I'm going to do a bind off. Okay, and when I go to do that bind off, it's going to look like a chain. All right, and you want to keep that kind of neutrality going on. All right. So you want to do a chain cast on. And once you get your cast on it, it goes pretty smooth for several rows. You're going to do a, you can do a seed stitch or you can do a garter stitch. It's entirely up to you. I think I'm probably going to do a garter stitch. Okay. Pop that right on. Alright. So keep in mind that while you may have cast it on this half, when you go to bind off, you want your bind off to look the same as your cast on. And I do have a method for that. So you'll want to get a crochet hook. Alright, so here we go. At this point, you want to knit for 3 rows. So I'm just going to go around and do my knitting for 3 rows. And then I'll come back and do 3 rows of a garter stitch. Okay. Alright. So go ahead and pause the video, because as you can see, everything's tossing over just like normal. This paracord cast on, nothing special. You aren't losing the stitch or anything, but do not pull the paracord out. Alright? I'll make sense of that later. At this point, everything should be running fairly normally for probably about 10 rows, probably 9. Then we will do our adjustment where it flips, and then we change it. Okay, so, and here we are to the crochet cast on. Okay, so now that I've shown you all the way around, what you want to do is pause the video and complete 3 rows of knit. And we'll come back and I'll show you we need to complete 3 rows of purl, and you're going to complete that 2 more times. And so if you already got those instructions and you don't need them shown to you, 3 rows of knit, 3 rows of purl, and then you're going to do that for where you have a total of 9 rows. So you're going to do that combo 3 times total, and then you'll be ready to come back. But if you need an example of what I'm doing, I will show you. Okay, so do your 3 rows of knit and we'll come back. Alright, so what's next is we are going to purl for 3 rows. Okay, so we're gonna send that up. And purl all the way around for 3 rows. You're gonna repeat that 6-row repeat 2 more times for a total of 9 rows. And if you don't have this loom and you have the flexi loom, you can do it on the large 5/8 inch gauge flexi loom, okay? So you can do the same pattern. I'll put a link on how to transfer my X-loom patterns to a flexi loom, and you'll find that it's actually not difficult at all, okay? In fact, with this, it's the same as what I show in the video, okay? Alright, so go ahead and pause the video and complete your garter stitch, 9 rows of garter stitch, 3 rows knit, 3 rows purl, 3 rows knit, 3 rows purl, 3 rows knit, 3 rows purl. That should be your last row. When you come back, that's when we're going to start prepping to do the twist section of the brim. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video and get that much done. Okay, what you may have found is that this part wasn't too bad. It's creating that twisted brim that's going to be a challenge. So, here's what you should have. You should have half of this like this and half of this like this with the chain. And if you want it to be exact, there is a bind off that is used with a crochet hook. Okay, so I've completed those sections, and what I need to do is, what you should have finished with was a purl row. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go in and do 3 rows of knit, okay? And that should get you total. So go ahead and knit you 3 more rows, okay? And then what you're going to want to have prepped is, I find stitch markers are helpful with this. When you're going in and you're going to be pulling this stitch out, you'll also want to get your crochet hook if you want it to look exactly like the other side, because you are going to have that as the trim of your brim. So you're definitely going to get a crochet hook for that, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and get your stitch markers, get your crochet hook. It doesn't really matter what size for the most part, because your pegs is what's going to be going in and giving it the effect that it needs, okay? and then we'll be ready to do the twist. And after we do the twist, the rest of this hat is easy. Okay, so we are to our bind off that we're going to do, and this is not your typical crochet bind off. It's a stretchy bind off done with a crochet hook, and generally you want it to kind of be able to go through the pegs that you have. Okay, so to get started, you want to send through like you're going to do a true knit, and you're going to put it on the crochet hook. Then you're going to go in and you're going to do that again, and you're going to put it on the crochet hook. Okay, and then you're going to tighten that up. Then you're going to pull this second stitch back. Okay, I have done a video specifically for this. I will put it in the link below if you want a more detailed explanation of this. Okay, so you true knit the next stitch and you place it on there, and then you're going to pull through that next stitch. Okay, all right, so then you're going to true knit the next stitch, put it on, tighten, and then pull that second stitch past. Okay, and as you can see, you're creating a chain. Now you can go in and you can start releasing those as you go. But what you're going to have is something that looks the same as the other, and because this is part of the base of the brim, you don't want it to not have the stretch. You don't want it to have the non-uniformity of the other side. Okay, so again, to do this, you're going to go in and do it like a true knit. You're going to put it on the hook, then you're going to pull that second one past that first one. Okay, and as you go along, you can let off a couple of more pegs. Okay, alright, maybe a little stiff, but what you're trying to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to bind off all the way around, and you're going to stop here. This is your halfway point, so you're going to stop here. Okay, so you're going to pause the video and you're going to do your crochet bind off, stretch bind off. You're going to stop here, and I'll still have that last stitch on the hook so that you know what you're doing. Okay, and then we're going to be doing the twist, where we're going to be flipping. We're going to be pulling this up, that down. All right, and it's going to create a twist. Okay, yes, you could do this separate, but I don't think it will have, you can sew it together, but it doesn't have the stretch that you usually need on a hat when you start doing seaming. Okay, so it's important not to have the seaming in there, and that is what this is all about. Okay, that's how you do a wedge section. All right, and it may be a little bit to get it off the peg. Okay, and you may want to do that. Okay, so I'll get you around the corner so you see what you're doing. All right. Again, it's always like a true knit. You can do it like a purl, I guess. I've not done it like a purl. You could do it like a purl. You're just trying to get you a chain so that you can stick it on there, and you can pull that through. Okay, and on those corner ones, you may want to tighten that up as well. All right. But the object is to get it even like this half. Okay, this chain half, so it looks the same. and it has that same stretch. So the object of what we're trying to do is keep that stretch with the hat, keep the neutrality on the trim so that you don't see the difference, okay? So it's a little more effort than you would typically put into a brim area, but I do feel like it's well worth the effort to do these techniques and be able to have that neutrality, that it has the same beginning, same end. It's a good choice for if you're doing a blanket and that kind of thing, okay? But I do have a full video tutorial on how to do this if you want something more detailed, but it's not that difficult. Okay, so just pull that through. Okay, get one done and then release it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and get your bind off done, okay? And then we will come back and I'll show you the next step, all right? And this is the most complicated part of the whole hat, is this brim section, okay? But once it's done, I really do feel like it's well worth it. It's probably a unique number of supplies when you need a crochet hook and paracord. But again, I really think that this is worth the look. Okay, so pause the video, get your half of your stitches. Remember to stop before this stitch marker here so that you've done your halfway point, and we'll be ready to do the flip that gives it the twist and the brim. Okay, so you can see I'm on the last one. Alright, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull that off. We're going to pull that last chain and put it on that stitch right there. Alright, you see that? And then I'm just going to toss that bottom loop over. Alright, we have now binded off half those stitches, as you can see. Alright, so the next step, you're going to push that down and fold up. Take that cast on and pull it up, okay? If I can get that more appropriately, all right? And here is where the fun begins, okay? Now there's a couple ways you can do this to get these stitches that you've created here onto here. You can put a stitch marker on one and then pull it through so that you don't lose that stitch. It's entirely up to you. It is actually not that difficult, and you get that stitch and pull it on, then pull it out. Okay, and then you can get that next stitch. Okay, and it's pretty easy to see the stitch. Put it on and pull out. All right, so your goal is to go in and do that all the way around, and then you have done your twisted brim, okay? And what you will see, now that you've done that twist, here is your cast on here, and here is your bind off. And you know what? Look at that. Look at that. You can't tell difference. It keeps that neutrality that you need on the base, okay? So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and take these stitches off independently, and then you can put the stitch on and then pull the paracord out one at a time. Or you can take your stitch markers and put them on one at a time, and so that way you make sure you don't lose the stitch, because it's important not to lose the stitch. These are your stitches that are going to continue this hat, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and get your stitches off your paracord. Okay, and again, the purpose of this is to continue to have that give and stretch that you have on a hat. Yes, you can do the regular bind off, you can do all this stuff regularly, and you can sew it on like that, but you start changing look of it, you start affecting its stretch, its wear, that kind of thing. You can get something that doesn't look quite right. Okay, so this allows for, you're not cutting your yarn, you're not sewing your yarn, you're getting a nice neutrality here. Okay, and it's just a twisted brim. Okay, so pause the video, get your stitches off of your paracord and onto the loom, and then we'll be ready to start the last section, which is really easy. And as you can see, we have our cast on loops on, and if you happen to have an extra loop at the end, just put it onto that stitch and you can knit the two stitches together on the next round. Okay, so at this point you're just going to knit your way over back to your starting point. Okay, and then I'm going to do something to kind of solidify my cast on tail. I'm going to actually tie it because you can see that this could get loosened up. So I'm going to end up tying that to my working yarn so that I don't have that slide through while I'm working on it. Okay, and then I can just weave it in later. Alright, so I'm going to knit my way back to my starting point, and then once I'm there, I'm going to knit for 14 rows, and I should be ready to start doing my bind off. Okay, I mean not my bind off, but my decreasing, and it's going to be a 3-row repeat where you decrease a row and then you knit 2 rows. Okay, so that is the hardest part. We have just completed it, doing the twist of the brim. That was it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tie this off. Okay, so that it doesn't go anywhere on me. Okay. Alright. So what you'll see is, if you look on the bottom, is you'll see that twist. Okay, you'll see that crossover. And you kind of see the twist on top too. You'll see where it's twisting down and twisting down. Okay. And so you'll need to weave that in when you're done. Okay. But at this point, you're ready to just knit like you normally do. Alright, so you're just knitting 14 rows. Okay, I have done 14 rows. I'm ready to start decreasing, and so what you're going to do is you're going to loosen the washer. You're going to push a single slot in, tighten the washer back. You're going to take your straggling stitches back here. You're going to move them both to that wedge peg. Okay, and that is a wedge decrease. Push down to the next. Move in. I'm going to do this with all 4 wedges. So you're going to be doing a 3-row repeat. Okay, and this is the first row of the repeat. Okay. So your first row will always be a decrease. Your second row will always, your second and third row will always be knit. All right. Now, if you want to do stitch patterning here, you can. You can do a seed stitch. You don't have to. You just continue the seed stitch concept. You don't actually have to go in and do a lot of thinking on that. If you do a rib stitch, you will have to adjust to how you want to do it. Okay, but it's up to you how you want to do this. This is just a guideline. You can switch this up and really make it your own if you want. Okay, so at this point, I've done my wedge decrease. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to knit my way around. And when I get to the wedge pegs, I am going to toss the 3 loops over. So there's 1. There is 2. And here is 3. Okay. So I'm going to toss all 3. And this is always fun to try to get into the camera. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and knit your way around. And when we come back, I'll explain what the next 2 rows are. Okay, at this point, I've done my wedge decrease row, and my next 2 rows are going to be knit. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to knit for 2 rows, okay? So you knit for 2 rows, and then you do your decrease, and then you knit around, and then you knit for another 2 rows. So your 3-row repeat is you have a decrease row, then you have 2 rows of knit. And you're going to repeat that over and over again until you're down to a total of 16 stitches. And when you get there, come back and I'll show you how to finish up your hat. You're not far from done at this point. Okay, so I have done all the way down to my 16, as you can see. Here's what the hat looks like. What you're ready to do now is to do a drawstring bind off, and all you do is toss over and pull through, and toss over and pull through. Let's go ahead and drawstring bind off, and then tie off your tail and that kind of thing, and then you're done.